Hey guys, Mike here again. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you all are safe and healthy in those mad times. So today we're gonna talk about this bad boy. This is the Metal Foundry expansion pack for Superior Drummer. You know, might ask, why do you talk about an expansion that's 11 years old? This came out 2009. Well, I thought, first of all, I haven't found an in-depth review about this product yet. And I wanted to discuss with you and show you and talk about the pros and cons about this bad boy, because it still is the best-selling expansion pack for drum samples on the market. And I wanted to discuss if this is still the undisputed king of drum samples for hard rock and metal. So in this video, I'm going to show you some audio examples, discuss the pros and cons with you, and in the end, I'm going to share a preset that I did, a Mike Luke preset for Metal Foundry. What I used, maybe you like it. So without further ado, let's jump into it. The Metal Foundry was, or still is, the predecessor of the latest, one of the latest metal expansions Toontrack released last year in Metal Month, the Death and Darkness SDX. But I think still to this day, if my information is correct, Metal Foundry up to this day is still the most sold library or expansion from Toontrack and probably all around the world, because it was released in 2009 on the 10 years anniversary of Toontrack and was built kind of like upon, or was the predecessor of the legendary drum kit from Hell, which was the product that brought Toontrack to the table and into the industry. So before we start talking about the Metal Foundry itself, let me quickly show you a comparison between the Metal Foundry. I've created a little loop down here, the Metal Foundry and the Death and Darkness. And though even this is the default kit that comes with the Metal Foundry, which is Thomas Haag, the drummer from Meshuggah, if you know him, Thomas Haag kit, the Sonor SQ2, a custom made for him, I would switch to the DW Collectors, because the DW Collectors is available with the Death and Darkness. So I would just play the same loop with 3 different libraries right now, no mixing whatsoever, going on just the pure kit as they come. So you will clearly hear the difference, and afterwards we're going to talk about this. So first with the Metal Foundry, and then I'm going to switch to both the Death and the Darkness libraries that was released last year. So you can clearly hear that the Metal Foundry sounds, let's say, more raw, more pure, and it's 100% unprocessed. The only flavor you're going to probably hear is the sound of the Neve recording console they used in Atlantis Studios in Sweden when they recorded this almost 12 years ago or 13 years ago. So I'd like to compare this with, let's say, a more modern and older sports car. You know, when you compare a, let's say, 1980s or 1970s Porsche or Corvette with newer sports cars like a 2012 Porsche 911. So they are both extremely well-built sports cars. However, the older one is like more pure car driving with no technology or almost no technology going on whatsoever under the roof, just like an engine, a steering wheel, and you as a driver, while nowadays the cars come with more technology that help you to perform even better. And I think this comparison pretty much matches here. And this is both the strength and the weakness maybe of the Metal Foundry. What you get here is 100% pure recorded raw sounds. I mean, this library sounds so dead dry that is almost ridiculous, but I like it. I remember when I bought it some years ago for the first time, is that I had some issues to make it sound the way I wanted it to sound, because I was surprised how really dry those sounds were, especially compared even to the old core library of Superior Drummer 2, the Avatar libraries, and of course, in comparison to the latest expansions they released after the release of Superior Drummer 3. So the Metal Foundry is really 100% pure and raw as it gets. But once you understand how to mix properly, you can pretty much shape this expansion to anywhere you want. Even though, and I know you heard me saying this 1,000 times, and I never get tired of telling this, don't let yourself be fooled by the name metal, even though this library is of course kind of like tailor-made for everything hard rock, metal, thrash metal, speed metal, vintage metal. But of course, in the end of the day, it's just a DW Collectors or a Sonor SQ2 drum kit recorded on a Neve console. So you can of course use this for every single genre. I think one of the biggest difference from the Metal Foundry is that they tried to capture a bigger, let's say, variety of genres and time especially. I highly recommend going to Toontrack's website as always to check in some detailed information. And when you look on YouTube, you will find some very vintage and old videos from Toontrack when they made a video about the recording process back in the days when they recorded this SDX for Superior Drummer. You hear some of the Toontrack guys talking about how many files they captured. So it's very interesting to see. Highly recommend doing this. But in this video, they talk about especially about the approach of this kit, that they wanted to try to capture, let's say, several decades of music in metal and hard rock. And this is what matches the drum kits they picked for this. On cymbal-wise, you get mainly Sabian, because Thomas Haag, the Meshuggah drummer, is a Sabian endorser, but you get some other brands as well. So you see here the Bothros, you have some Paistes going on, Zildjian, but mainly it's Sabian. And Sabian, of course, has its footprint and the repetition of being a typical metal cymbal. But looking at the other drum kits here, we already talked about this Thomas Haag signature drum set, which is very unique, especially with this gigantic 14x14 tom-tom, which he uses in his current setup, and going like from the 10x10, 14x14, and then 10x12 again. But you have just two different other Sonor options here, which is more or less a unique, not a unique, a common setup for drums. 5-tom configuration we talked about, and I showed you already the DW Collectors. We have this Tama Imperial Star 1975, which, as you see, has been recorded without the bottom head of the tom. So you have this concert tom approach, and they captured, and even though you just see 5 toms here, but they captured this Tama set with 10 toms. So you can really build a gigantic set here. It starts with 5.5 by 6 inch rack tom here. So you can really like almost have a rototom feeling, and of course you can play In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins, and this is what it's all about, isn't it? So so you have this Tama kit from the 70s, and of course it has a certain flavor to it due to the missing bottom head of the toms here. We have this Ludwig Amber Vistalite, which is matches the exact sizes John Bonham played. So this was the attempt to capture the legendary Led Zeppelin sound from the 70s with not only the exact drum kit John Bonham used, but as well the exact matching sizes 14 by 26 inch kick drum, 10 by 14 rack tom, 16 by 16 and 16 by 18 floor tom, and of course the legendary 6.5 by 14 Ludwig Superphonic. So let me show you how this sound, I've created this little Led Zeppelin groove here. So listen to the legendary John Bonham kit here. So that's one of the biggest advantages still for me, why I still like this SDX, that you just have more versatility. And when you look at the presets, this Metal Foundry comes and it has a lot of presets here. I'm just gonna swipe through. And Matthias Eklund, one of the founders of Toontrack and head of sound design, talks about this in the video, what they wanted to create here, capturing the sound of Iron Maiden, of Metallica, of Kiss, Led Zeppelin, of course, and they created some presets. Of course, they never used the exact name of the preset, but you clearly see here Master of Justice or Made of Iron, and I think there's another one here which is saying Snot Lip, so you clearly get the idea of what they tried to capture with that sound. So just for demonstration purposes, I'm gonna load the Iron Maiden kit here and play the same loop as I started with, so you get an idea. It never matches 100% the sound, but I think they got pretty close in capturing the sounds of those metal and hard rock legends back from the 70s and from the 80s. So here is Iron Maiden. And of course, Metallica, the preset called Master of Justice. Most of the other presets that come along are sometimes brutally processed, as you would expect from metal. I'm just gonna load up here the first one, which is called Metal. As you see here in the mixer window, quite a lot of processing going on. Compression is the king, of course, in metal. So let's listen on this, and you get an idea how far you can shape this library here. But as I said, the SDX is quite versatile. When I load, for instance, the Tama Imperial Star full kit preset here, which is not really a preset when you look at the mixer window because there's no processing going on whatsoever. It's just the pure kit matched with this amazing 12 by 14 WFL marching snare with wood hoops. So this is almost like kind of like a bluesy sounding vintage kit from the 70s. And to match better the sound, let me quickly go to a MIDI. I always try to use the Roots MIDI library here because it contains some full songs performances, which is great. So played with a lot of dynamics. So this really shows the, let's say, the capability of a library to capture the details. So you get the idea. Of course, as the library had been recorded almost 12 or 13 years from now, back in the day, of course, the newer libraries like the core library of Superior Drummer and every expansion they released since then, of course, there are recorded with more detail and more articulation. But already back in the day, when you look, for instance, at the hi-hats, they triggered open bell articulation, which was rare back then. Don't forget, we talk about 2008, 2007, 2009, that area where drum samples were really like still a complicated things to do. And this whole library contained 35 gigabytes, which made the Metal Foundry for a long time the by far biggest drum sample library on the market. So, and it's still to this day, it hasn't lost its magic, at least for me. But, and I'm coming to a little conclusion already, is this still worth buying in 2020, considering the fact that we now have the Rooms of Hansa and the Death and Darkness, and of course the core library, and maybe even Stephen Slade drums and good drums, like all those new fancy polished sounding drum sample libraries. So let me just quickly go back here to the default kit. I would say yes, if you exactly know what you want to achieve. As I said, as the drum samples here are 100% purely raw, no processing going on whatsoever, it can be an advantage or a disadvantage. If you don't know anything about mixing and you just rely on presets, it can be tricky to get the Metal Foundry to sound the way you expected them to be. Presets always have like this problem. Sometimes you search through all the presets and you never find one that really matches your needs. And when you don't have experience in mixing, you are not able to change the presets as well. So it doesn't make sense to pick a preset here. However, if you are a producer, if you're a drummer and non-drummer who knows at least a little bit about mixing and processing and EQ and compression, all that stuff, Metal Foundry is really worth buying still. I would recommend waiting for a sale, which they do occasionally 2 times a year at least, during their summer and their winter holiday seasons. And I think, remember last year, 2019, the Metal Foundry went even on a 60 or 70% discount. So for me, it would be a no-brainer to pick this if I hadn't this already. It really depends on the needs, of course, you want to achieve. While the Death and Darkness library really capture the polished modern sounds of nowadays hard rock, metal, and even pop productions, the Metal Foundry has the advantage over the latest ones that you really can create this kind of like more raw and vintage sound that metal and this pure unpolished sound metal and hard rock had in the 70s, 80s. So the Metal Foundry would really my go-to library if you are working in that genre and want to create that sound. Looking at the presets that come along, yes, you can use some of the old Metallica and Iron Maiden presets here and Slipknot, which makes this library, of course, great for all the hardcore fans of those bands from back in the day. So finally, before I end this video, I would ask you to leave a comment in the comment section if you use this library, if you have it. Do you love it or do you don't love it? Let me just share your thoughts and share with the community what you think about this library, what you recommend using it for, how you used it, so on and so forth. And finally, at the end of this video, I will show you a mix that I did because I wanted to mix a Metal Foundry preset, or I started from scratch, mixed the whole drum kit and used the play along, just like to give it a Mike Luke flavor. Wanted to check how far I can bring it and find the balance between going too extreme metal wise and having like a modern sound production. So I hope you like this final video. It's a great play along too. Thanks so far for watching, guys, and talk to you next time. Bye bye.